So I'll never forget back in 2021, I was in Hawaii actually. My family and I had spent the majority of that morning on Waikiki Beach, and we had decided to go visit Pearl Harbor for that afternoon. And so I was on that main freeway on Oahu, driving and making my way over to Pearl Harbor. And while I was driving, my family was pretty tired from spending the first half of the day at the beach. And so I was kind of driving alone. And I did what I typically do. I usually put on a YouTube video just to kind of keep me company, put on something that I can listen to. And I remember when I was kind of going through and selecting YouTube videos, one of the big videos that popped out to me was the video that was done by Carl Jopes regarding WADA grading. And WADA at the time was huge for grading video games, grading retro games. And they, I guess, were in partnership with Heritage Auctions. And Heritage Auctions, they were making the news for having these massive sales, selling games at these massive prices, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars for a single NES game and things like that. And Carl kind of really just cracked open the whole grading. I don't know if I want to still call it a scam, but it was being perceived as a scam between Heritage Auctions and WADA Grading. And at that time in 2021, not only were just video games hot in general, because 2021 there was still social distancing. There weren't the lockdowns weren't as tight as they were, say, in 2020, but there were still a lot of restrictions. There were a lot of travel restrictions. There were still, people still weren't as able to go out and just do what they wanted. You still had to wear a mask. The vaccine was very popular at that time. And so retro video games, as a result, was still extremely popular. Prices were still rising on majority, if not all, retro games. And as a sidebar to that, graded video games were also exploding. We were seeing prices for graded video games going through the roof. Now, as the retro gaming market started to cool off, say like 2023, the end of 2022 through like the middle of 2023, as video games started to cool off, one of the areas of the retro gaming market that cooled off extremely fast was graded video games. And that was due in large part to the fact that graded video games were considered at the high end of luxury gaming as a hobby. It was that just being able to buy video games in general, just used video games. I'm not even talking about sealed retro games, but if you were able to just buy retro games, period, that was a luxury. But then going and having them graded or buying them already graded at that, you were considered at the high end of the, retro gaming market in terms of, just valuables, right? You were pretty much a collector at that point. And at the time of 2023, 2023 going into 2024, we started to see the economy take a real hit, not for a lot of factors, right? There were a lot of reasons why this was happening. But the biggest reason why this was happening was because a lot of the stimulus, a lot of the forbearance, a lot of the free money, a lot of the not having to pay rent and not having to pay student loans and not really having to pay any bills, all of that stuff started to expire, and, people were expected to start paying their bills again, and they weren't getting any free money anymore. And so things started to get really tight. And, for the most part, retro gaming as a whole, while yes, it's taken a bit of a hit, it definitely, in my opinion, hasn't taken as big of a hit as graded video games has. The graded video game market, I think, has fully receded back to its original participants. Meaning, if you were integrated video games before 2020, that group is probably the main group that's still participating in that today. I think a lot of the speculators, a lot of the people who, considered grading their games, or a lot of that has kind of taken a back seat, as opposed to just retro gaming in general, I think there's still a high level of participation in that, just because I think retro games, non-graded retro games, or pre-owned retro games, games that aren't sealed, those are a lot more accessible. You can still find them in the wild easily, and if you're lucky to find them in the wild, you won't be forced to pay a supreme premium for those games. Well, why am I saying all this? I'm saying all this because throughout time, and all that time, even back then, I had a number of sealed video games in my collection, and I still do. But I never once considered getting those games graded for whatever reason. It didn't appeal to me. It didn't really make a ton of sense to me. And to be quite honest, a lot of the sealed games in my collection, I felt like, you know what, I'm going to open this game eventually and play it. It's in my backlog. I haven't gotten into it yet, but I will get to it. So that's part one. And part two, a lot of the sealed games that I picked up, I never purchased them because they were sealed. They just happened to be sealed when I found them, and I just purchased them in that condition with the intent to open them and play them. And I have opened a few of them. Some of them I've actually sold just because I realized I was never going to get to them. But I still have a good number of sealed games in my collection that I've considered. Does it even make sense to get them graded today? So I'm going to take you through 10 games that go between the 7th generation and then all the way back to the 5th generation that I still have sealed in my collection. And you guys can let me know down in the comments if you think it even makes sense to have any of these games graded today. So the first game that we have up is Lollipop Chainsaw Massacre for the Xbox 360. This is not a rare game by any stretch of the imagination. It's been released not only on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, but it's also been re-released. I can't remember if it was through limited run or strictly limited. I can't remember, but you can get it now, I think, on the Switch, either on the Switch or the PS4. You guys can let me know down in the comments. But my point here is that it's not rare or anything, but it happens to be sealed. It is a sealed 360 game. The wrapping on it is pretty good. There aren't any tears or snags in the wrapping, and it is the factory sealed. As you can see, the factory label with the barcode there. So it is a sealed game, but it is one that, I'm wondering, you guys let me know, does it even make sense to get this graded today? Okay, the next game that we have, this one is for the PlayStation 3. Now, this is Under Defeat HD Deluxe Edition. Now, this is oh, by the way, Lollipop Chainsaw, if you're not familiar, it's a third-person hack and slash game, basically, where you have this chainsaw and you're hacking and slashing zombies. Under Defeat HD, this is actually a shoot 'em up. This is like a 2.5D top-down shoot 'em up style game. Very interesting, and this was very unique on the PlayStation 3. I remember getting this and thinking, man, I've never really seen this game before. And it was, in my opinion, a hidden gem for a long time until Limited Run got their hands on it, and now either it's gotten or it's getting a re-release on the Switch and PlayStation 4 through Limited Run again. So none of these like quote unquote hidden gem games are safe with Limited Run around. They're going to reprint and re-release all these games. All that being said, I still do have a factory sealed copy of the game. Again, this is another one of those games where there's no snags, no tears, no rips in this one. Oh, actually there is that a tear? Let me see, is that a tear? Oh, yep, this one may actually have a tear in it. So this one is probably not even grading worthy at this point with that little snag in there. But if it were sealed, if it were sealed with no snags, you guys let me know, does Under Defeat make sense to have graded these days? And I think, honestly, there's a lot of sealed copies available online. So again, this is not an extremely rare one by any stretch of the imagination. All right, so that's like the 7th gen stuff. I can't remember if this next game falls in 7th gen. I think it does, 7th or 6th. You guys let me know. But we're going to go into some DS games. So we do have Phantasy Star Zero on the DS. Phantasy Star is, again, one of those kind of like action RPG style games. Pretty cool on the DS. Again, this is one I think I picked up in a lot. Never had the chance to crack it open and dive into it, but my copy is still factory sealed. Pretty decent game, good looking game at that. I know in its sealed condition, it does have a pretty decent value. But again, I'm not sure what the scarcity or rarity on this one is, so you guys can let me know. This next one is really cool. I've been wanting to crack this open so many times, just never got around to it. But Thundercats. This actually looks like a really cool side-scrolling like action game, um, based on obviously the popular Thundercats cartoon show that I grew up watching. As you can see, it's got some pretty good looking sprite work in there, some really good looking action on there. I know Thundercats, even sealed Thundercats, does not command a high price. Last time I checked, this was like a $40 game, even sealed. So I don't know what the rarity is on Thundercats, but this is one that, you know, the seal on this one is still pretty good. No snags or tears. So you guys let me know if Thundercats makes sense. Next up, we have Suikoden. So this is the DS version of Suikoden. Now, I know this one at one point did have some decent value to it. I think at one point, this was like a $100 game, probably at the height of, you know, prices back between like 2020 and like 2022. It's probably come down like a lot of these retro games have. Again, this is another one factory sealed with the Y-fold, no snags or anything in the wrapping here. But it is a classic Suikoden RPG, turn-based RPG for the DS. Very popular series. We got the remake of Suikoden 1 and 2 for the Switch and PlayStation. I don't know I know it was on the 5. I don't know if it was released on the 4 as well, but Suikoden is a very popular RPG series going all the way back to, geez, I don't know. Did it start on the PlayStation 1? You guys let me know. But let me know if it makes sense on this one, getting this one graded at this point. I feel like no, but I'm going to say you guys can let me know. I feel like it's no on all of these, honestly. Next up, we have Persona 3 on the PlayStation 3. Another sealed game here. Picked this one up in a massive lot. You know, to be honest, I was shocked that it was still sealed. This one, again, like the others, does have its factory seal. It's kind of tricky with PlayStation 2 games because some of them come with like the little barcode and stuff at the top with the Y-fold. Some of them don't. So you guys can let me know why that is in the comments section, why some PlayStation 2 games have the whole barcode and like label on top and some don't. But I'm going to say no to grading this one because even though it's sealed, you can see there's like some wrinkling on the cover art on the back there. So if this was a reseal, they did a hell of a job resealing it with the Y-fold. But you guys let me know. I'm going to say no to the grading of this one, but you guys can let me know down in the comments below. All right, and now we're going to get to some 5th gen stuff. Now, if I were to grade anything, it would probably be one of these 4 games. So starting off, we have for the PlayStation 1, One Piece Mansion. Now, this is a very interesting game, if I'm not mistaken. It's kind of like a simulation game, like a simulator game. It's by Capcom, and I think you're running a hotel. It's basically like you're running like this, either a hotel or some type of business, and you have to keep track of like the finances and stuff like that, and manage. Basically, it's like a management game. And I think this one is very unique. This is not an expensive game, even sealed. There's nothing rare about it. As again, I think you can find this game sealed in a lot of places. This one is super sealed. I say it's super sealed because it does have the plastic Y-fold, not the Y-fold, but it has the plastic hang tag on the back. Although now that I'm looking at it, the plastic hang tag does have some damage, but it still has the original label intact. So I'm going to say probably no to having this one graded just because of the damage on the back here. If it was like a one-of-a-kind piece, maybe, but because it's so common and you can find a lot of these sealed copies all over the place, I'm going to go ahead and say no to grading on this one, but you guys can let me know what you think about that. Next up, we have Pandemonium II for the PlayStation 1. The Pandemonium series on the PlayStation 1, I think, is pretty popular, or at least it was popular back in the day. I don't know if this is one that's like a must-have in a collector's collection, but this one, again, is sealed. Again, it does have the factory sealing on it with the barcode. I really like to see that because that's just a true indicator of just genuine factory sealing on it. Again, it does have the hang tag in the back, and the hang tag on the back of this one is actually in pretty good shape, so that's good. It does have, though, on the back, this sticker on there. So, you know, I don't know how grading companies look at that. I know some grading companies will clean games for you. I don't know if this is something that would need to be removed in order for it to qualify for grading. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there's like a crack somewhere on here. But if not, you guys let me know, would you grade Pandemonium 2? Does it make sense? Would it make sense to remove this little old school sticker here, or would you guys just keep it, you know, in its standard format? But yeah, let me know what you guys think about Pandemonium 2. And then our last PlayStation 1 game here is Gekko. Now this is the English version of a shoot 'em up that was released on the Sega Saturn that has a name that's very difficult for me to pronounce. It starts with a S. If you shoot 'em up lovers out there know what game I'm talking about, you can let me know down in the comments. But this did get a release on the Sega Saturn under a different name. But I do have this game sealed. Again, another factory seal with the barcode on the back. It does have the hang tab on the back. That's intact. There's no stickers or anything on the back of this one. The wrapping looks really good. I do not see any snags or tears. The only thing with this one is it does have this big hole in the where the barcode is. Now, I don't know why that is. It clearly is factory sealed, so this would have had to have been done at the factory. So I don't know if this was done because it's not supposed to be resold. I really don't know why that big old hole would be there. But again, it is factory sealed. It does have the PlayStation seal on it. So this one is interesting. I don't see this one very often. This one did have some decent value to it. It's kind of come down in price. And, you know, shoot 'em ups are really a niche category. So I don't really know where this would fall in terms of value today. I haven't looked it up on this one. But again, you know, Gekko, very good shooter. It did get a Sega Saturn release. I don't know if I would lose grading points because of this, like, you know, this stickiness here with the label onto the plastic of the case, of the jewel case. I don't know. I'm assuming I'd get points deducted on that. But yeah, Gekko is a pretty decent one. You guys let me know down in the comments if it would make sense to have this one graded. Is that a crack in the back? No, that was just the plastic seal. All right. And then last but not least, we do have a Dreamcast game. Now, Gigawing is probably going to be the most rare game out of this entire bunch. And to be quite honest, it's probably in the best condition out of all the games that we've looked at. Despite it still being sealed, when you look at the manual does not look as fresh as one would think a manual on a sealed game should be. I could be wrong about that. I don't know. You guys let me know. And then when it comes to the seal on this one, while it does have the Y fold on it, I don't see that classic like factory sealing with like the, you know, the barcode and everything like that and anywhere on the actual wrapping. So I'm not sure if this is a reseal or a rewrap. If it is factory sealed, the plastic used on it does feel factory sealed. There's no snags or anything in the plastic. Everything is super intact. There's no cracks, no dings, no dents, no nothing. It's in very good condition. And I would say that out of all of them, this is probably the one that's the most grading worthy. However, just with it missing like any type of Sega Dreamcast official seal or barcode, it does make me wonder if this was some type of very well done reseal. So, but all that aside, Gigawing is a very it's a rare one. I think this is probably the most rare out of all my sealed games. You don't see copies of Gigawing just floating around like that, let alone sealed copies of Gigawing floating around like that. Gigawing on its own, even used or pre-owned or opened, I think it still commands above $100. Sealed, I'm not sure what it is now, but this one might be worth getting graded out of all of them. But you guys can let me know if that makes sense to you, if you would get your copy of Gigawing graded. I do have a copy of Gigawing 2, which is by far more rare than the first Gigawing. However, my copy of Gigawing 2 is complete in box. It's not sealed. If it were sealed, maybe that would make sense to get graded. But again, Gigawing, a lot like Gekko, is a shoot 'em up, and that genre is more niche. So it's not like grading a Mario or like anything like that, or like a sealed Twilight Princess. Those probably would carry more weight, but it's still a rare one. So you guys let me know down in the comments what you would do if you had any of these sealed games. Are any of them worth getting graded in your opinion? And then what are your thoughts on just the graded gaming market today? Does it even make sense to consider that market? Is anyone still even buying graded games? I'm interested to know your guys' thoughts, and I will catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.